you, everyone. My name is Todd Sack. I'm president of PSR National. We have so much to celebrate. Being together at last, our three healthcare heroes who we're so proud to be able to acknowledge tonight. Our new executive director, Brian Campbell. Brian, where are you? Wave your hand there right up front. Yay. And to celebrate our marvelous chapters and our thousands of health professional advocates who do the hard work of PSR around the country, dealing with the most existential threats to our world. Thanks to all of you. As I look around the room, I see so many people I admire. You are the PSR advocates who engage with passion, compassion, and integrity on the crucial issues that PNR cares about. So many of you are my role models, and so it's heartening to me to see you here today. And from the bottom of my heart, I want to thank all of you for representing PSR with your advocacy work to make this a better world. So please, applause to each of you for your great work. You know, Physicians for Social Responsibility, founded in 1961, shared in 2 Nobel Peace Prizes, has taken on so many issues over the years. We are the lead health voice on nuclear weapons abolition and climate change, but also we've worked on so many other issues here in Washington and at our 20-plus chapters around the country. Gun violence, racism, prisoner rights, water pollution, and many, many more. And I want to encourage you to go to our website, psr.org, which is a marvelous resource for any of your advocacy work. Take advantage of what we have, call our staff, let us help you to be more effective in the work that you're passionate about. You know, these are tough roads to hoe, climate change and nuclear weapon abolition. It's tough. And I want to just quote Winston Churchill, who I think about at times when I worry about whether we're getting the work done or not. He said, "Every day you may make progress on your journey. Every step may be fruitful, yet there will stretch out before you an ever-lengthening, ever-ascending, ever-improving path. You know you will never get to the end of the journey. But this, so far from discouraging, only adds to the joy and glory of the climb." And it's so with this sense of joy, including the joy of being together tonight, that I welcome you on behalf of the Board of Directors and our staff at Physicians for Social Responsibility. I want to refer you to our brochure to read about our sponsors, who I'll just briefly list today. I want to thank them for being so supportive of us. Please hold your applause to the end of the list. Our universal sponsors are Kathy Falvo. Kathy, I didn't see you here today. Are you here? Yay, Kathy, thank you. Also the chair of our philanthropy committee, Barbara Sharp and Todd Sack. Our continental sponsors are Jeannie and Mike Martin. I got to go to the list. Our ambassadorial sponsors are Dr. Ellen Ferranti, who's with our New York chapter, Mark and Susan Vossler out in Seattle. Our national sponsors are Bob Gould, Alan and Ann Lockwood, Marjane Moini, David Drake, Alexis Strongen, Lynn Ringenberg in my Florida, Ronald Saff, also from Florida, and Elaine Scarry from Boston. Our regional sponsors are Dr. Art Milholland and Luann Mostello, Steve and Janice McKee. Steve's here today. Thank you, Steve. Barbara Warren and the Metropolitan Group. So thank you to all of you. And I think I might have left out Jeannie and Mike Martin. Thank you, Mike. Thank you. So now I've talked a bit about our chapters. We're going to go now to our chapters with a short video about our PSR chapters that we're so proud of.
Hello, I'm Dr. Barbara Warren, the Executive Director of Physicians for Social Responsibility. PSR Arizona is based in Tucson and represents the entire state of Arizona. Like many of our other chapters, PSR Arizona faces the climate challenge of increasingly more extreme, record-breaking heat, forest fires, a 22-year drought, and other life-threatening conditions. Which are unique to Arizona, along with New Mexico, is the mining and use of fossil fuels and uranium mining on tribal lands, and their use for our dirty energy used by a nuclear power plant in the area of Phoenix, and for nuclear weapons manufactured by Raytheon in Tucson.
Hello, my name is Marge Plum, and I'm the part-time executive director of San Francisco Bay Physicians for Social Responsibility. Founded in 1979, we are one of the oldest chapters in the PSR network. We are physicians and other health providers, we are public health experts, we are community advocates and scientists, and we have one unified goal: protect human life from the gravest threats to health and survival by preventing what cannot be cured. We promote public policies that protect human health from the threats of nuclear war and other weapons of mass destruction, global environmental degradation, climate change, and other social injustices in our society today. Our supporters, leaders, and volunteers are from all 9 counties that touch the San Francisco Bay and from counties throughout Northern California.
Hi, I'm Anna Lanakis, the Executive Director of Greater Boston PSR. The challenges our chapter faced this year were mainly based on our limited staff and resources. We had a communications intern until she graduated from college, and then we went without a comms person, so we needed to rely on our allies like Sunstone Media to use their social media suggestions, and we partnered with them to release the Green Hydrogen Report. We relied heavily on our board chair to answer press requests, and the staffing and resources struggles are somewhat of a chicken and egg scenario, because in order to fundraise, we first need more staff to do so, but we can't afford the staff without the fundraising. Thankfully, we have a wonderful volunteer board that stepped up to the plate for a lot of these roles.
Hello, my name is Marge Plum, and I'm the part-time executive director of the Maine chapter of Physicians for Social Responsibility. Maine, the Pine Tree State, appreciates its independent nature in politics and life, is large in landmass, and the 10th smallest population among U.S. states. And all that is what makes Maine a policy powerhouse. Neighborhood picnic access to policymakers who can and often do think more independently than most.
I'm Tanya Verkaitis, the Executive Director of PSR Pennsylvania. This past year saw a major change in strategy for us. At the end of 2022, a concerned resident loaned us an $80,000 FLAIR OGI thermographic camera, which picks up hydrocarbons and toxic emissions. Because of the purchase, we hired a field scientist who had previous experience with the camera and other technology. With this addition to the team, we are now able to not only call out bad behavior on oil and gas and other infrastructure, but we can act as a direct service organization to residents who are concerned about toxic emissions, such as methane, on their property.
Hello, my name is Grace Vanderhei, and I am the Administrative Coordinator for Physicians for Social Responsibility Wisconsin chapter. I began my career here at PSR Wisconsin just this past May, and since I have started, we have already accomplished so many great things. Located in the heart of the state capital, Madison, Wisconsin, our organization not only serves our immediate community, but our service area extends to the greater state of Wisconsin. Our annual Lanterns for Peace event, which is held each August as a commemoration of the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, is a staple of the Madison community. This year, we had our largest turnout, with over 200 people in attendance.
Well, hello, I'm Todd Sack. I'm the part-time president of PSR National. Marge, thanks for being with us today. And so that's just an appetizer to a longer video that John Chuko, who's our philanthropy director, and put this evening together. Thank you, John. Thank you. John's putting a longer vision and version of the video that he's going to send out to each of you over the next week or so you can learn more about the work of our chapters. Now I have the honor of recognizing our 2023 Healthcare Heroes Lifetime Contributions Awardees, Dr. Alan Lockwood, Dr. Barb Gottlieb, and Tina Cordova. I'm going to begin by introducing Dr. Lockwood, and then others will be introducing our other awardees. Could I ask Alan and Anne to come forward? So I have a long list of things I could say about Alan, but I'm going to narrow it down to a few. And I really mean this award for Alan and Anne, because they've been a team in this decades-long project of Physicians for Social Responsibility. Alan and Ann have been true giants in both the nuclear weapons abolition and climate change movements, having written extensively, taught at medical schools, lectured across the country, really around the world. Alan is former president of PSR National and only recently rotated off our board. Alan remains active as a member of our advisory council, helping our environmental health team with his expertise. As a professor of neurology and nuclear medicine at the University of Buffalo, Alan's specialty was neurodegenerative disorders, including neurological diseases related to the environmental risks such as pesticides. He's also an expert on the medical ethics, focusing on the human testing of pesticides. He chaired our Environmental Health Committee for many years, and one of his greatest contributions to PSR work was serving as the lead author of our 2009 publication, Coal's Assault on Human Health. Alan's work on this white paper was invaluable to our entire movement, helping PSR activists successfully to shut down coal-powered power plants. And I have to tell you that in Florida, we actually shut down a power plant using your resources. It was quite remarkable. We used your evidence-based approach to persuade the Florida Medical Association this was possible, and teams of advocates went out to public hearings. And we were stunned when non-physicians stood up at the podium at a small little town in the Panhandle and spoke about your work and shut down. So thank you very much. Alan wrote 2 important books on the dangers of coal and one on the health threats of climate change. He's written many of PSR's comments to the EPA, warning repeatedly about the health impacts of climate change. Alan, there's so much more I'd like to say, but I want to just say thank you. Thank you for your dedication, for making our causes your lifelong causes. You are a true healthcare hero. Thank you. Come say a few words.
She needs to scurry back and take a picture of this.
Good.
We promised our kids that this would be forthcoming. Well, thank you all very, very much. It's indeed an honor to be named as a healthcare hero for Physicians for Social Responsibility. A couple of weeks ago, when Todd called me and asked me if I would accept the award, first I had to sit down, and then it came to me that, every time I turned around, there was someone else at PSR who, to my mind's eye, just seemed even more deserving than I. So this, hats off to all of the other people who've done so much for PSR. I got my start in PSR almost 45 years ago, as far as we could tell, when 2 medical students at the University of Miami in Florida approached this young assistant professor, untenured professor of neurology, and said, "There's an organization I think that you would enjoy being a part of." And, well, as they say, the rest is history. Shortly thereafter, I became president of the Miami chapter of PSR, and then helped organize the last of the great national bombing run national symposia. And none of this could have been done without the generous help of my wife, Ann, who was just up here a moment ago, being justly deserved. We were reminiscing a moment ago when, as a part of the Miami symposium, our publicity person arranged for Jack Geiger and everybody else who would be willing to do so to talk on radio stations. And Ann took Jack out in the middle of the Everglades in the dead of night to this little known radio station. And Jack, I don't know how many of you in the group knew him, but he was a terrible chain smoker. And he was leaning out the window of the car trying not to poison my wife. And she delivered him safely. So the next time Jack's path crossed with me was after the award of the Nobel Prize, when we were part of a touring group of PSR docs that went to the then Soviet Union, and we were to fly over the Chernobyl reactor. This was just 6 weeks after the disaster. And at the last moment, fortunately, otherwise I might not be here tonight. It was not possible to make the trip, but instead we went to Moscow Hospital 6 and saw the surviving engineers and firefighters who all subsequently died. Sort of somewhere along the line there, I met the PSR, which had quite a lot more money than in those days than we do now, asked me to be a national speaking fellow, and I went on a couple of tours, one of which was 5 days long, and I made about 50 different appearances during that 5 weeks. So Ann picked me up at the airport Friday night. I was kind of tired. And then after that, PSR began to think about expanding its programs to include environment and health issues. And I was part of a retreat that went to the Y plantation in Maryland, where I slept in the one and only time in an actual feather bed. You lie down on a feather bed and you can't see that your feet are sticking up. But as a result of that weekend retreat, the Environment and Health program was born, and I was asked to be the initial chair of that committee, and embarked on a whole bunch of different things, including alerting the public to the dangers of pesticides that were in our agricultural commodities. And at that time, the Food Quality Protection Act, which passed Congress unanimously, if you can imagine that in this day and age, was set to emphasize the fact that children might be more susceptible to the adverse effects of pesticides than adults. So what do you think the pesticide industry did? They began feeding pesticides to people in an attempt to prove that they were not harmful. So I wrote an expose of the scientific and ethical shortcomings of these endeavors, which wasn't very hard. And I would have to thank my colleagues at the Natural Resources Defense Council, who got 6 of these documents that were submitted to the EPA. And one of them, in the risk-benefit ratio consideration, said that numerous tests of these compounds have shown that they improve function on numerous tests of memory function. So eating the stuff that you might sprinkle on your countertop to kill cockroaches might make you smarter. That's what they wanted you to believe. Luckily, there were, in addition to the people from the National Academy of Sciences, where I also testified in addition to writing a paper about this in the American Journal of Public Health, the New York Times was there, and they said, debate erupts at meeting about pesticides. So then came coal and air pollution on the horizon, and as Todd mentioned, I wrote a book called Coal's Assault on Human Health. I participated in the writing of the PSR white paper, Coal's Assault on Human Health, that I later converted into a book called The Silent Epidemic, which in addition to helping spread awareness of the adverse health effects of burning coal to produce electricity, also got me a lot of trips to nice places, including South America, Alaska, Ireland, and a few other places. And then along came the climate crisis and a second book called Heat Advisory. Unfortunately, neither one of these were really big sellers on the MIT Press list, but they got a certain amount of recognition, and I'm very pleased to have been a participant in that. So it was with great thanks and a great big thank you to all of the other people at PSR. You know, every time I looked around to see who was doing great work, I always saw somebody who seemed to be doing more than I was. So I'm hoping I'm looking at a bunch of other people out there in the audience tonight that will be inspired to do the right thing and to make good trouble. Thank you very much.
And now we've asked Alan to introduce our next awardee. Thank you.
Well, Barbara Gottlieb probably needs no introduction to this audience because almost all of you have talked to her on the phone or seen her in Zoom sessions or participated in briefings that she conducted. That's somewhere I have this. This is a souvenir of one such. It was done in conjunction with our friends at Earth Justice, called 50 States United for Healthy Air. So Barb is the complete package. She's smart, she's articulate, she writes well, she knows seemingly endless amounts about everything and every cause that PSR espouses. And if you want reliable, cogent advice or help or referral to appropriate resources, Barb is your person. So it's a great honor on my part, having worked with Barb for as long as she's been with PSR, which is, in my case, quite a long time, to welcome Barb to the podium. Thank you very much, Barb.
Well, thank you, Alan, and thank you, PSR. I really am honored, especially to be introduced by Alan Lockwood. Alan has been a mentor as well as a colleague for me over the 15 years now that I've been with PSR. And to me, Alan really embodies the best qualities of the science educator and the science advocate, with his penetrating research, with his robust accountability to scientific fact, and to his strong health voice. I'm nowhere close. Really, I do not feel myself to be a hero. I've had the privilege through PSR of doing work that's really important and that I'm proud to have done, and some of it I have done well. But as the other speakers before me have noted, the same could be said about dozens of people in this room. So it's with some modesty that I stand before you. But the fact that there are so many people who are so qualified comes in a way as no surprise, because that's the kind of organization that PSR is. I mean, think about it. We fight against the greatest threats to human health and survival: climate change and nuclear war, and we do it every day. That's PSR. At the same time, I mean, I do have some accomplishments that I'm very proud of. I'm going to tell you about 3 of them, and I think they'll give you some insight into PSR. So the first thing that I'm proud of is that I have been a contributor in one capacity or another to, I think, almost all of the white papers and reports that PSR's Environment and Health Program has put out over the past 15 years. I had the honor of working with Alan on Cool's assault on human health. I was one of a team of 4 on that report. And then I went on to be either a co-author or the lead author or an editor, a merciless one, I'm afraid to say, on reports on coal ash, fracking, toxic chemicals used in fracking, hydrogen and hydrogen blending, and more. That's been a real pleasure. Those reports have served to amplify PSR's voice, to increase our visibility, and they have been valuable resources to a much broader movement. They've also been opportunities for me to collaborate with real experts, people like Alan and others in PSR, but also colleagues in Sierra Club, in Earth Justice, in We Act. So I hope that we will continue writing those reports and continue collaboration. Collaborating makes us strong. A second thing that I'm proud of is that I have managed to greatly increase PSR's fundraising from foundations. The grants from foundations started out as grants for one-off, one-year projects. And really what I think my greatest achievement there has been was to work those projects into a program that is broad, that is cohesive. We now have 3 multi-year goals for the E&H program. The first is to wean our country off of fossil fuels with an emphasis on methane or fracked gas. The second is to help pass federal policy that fights climate change and also advances clean, safe, healthy, renewable energy. And then the third is to bring more people like you, more health professionals, into the climate work. Another thing that I've been able to do with those funds has been to make small grants to a number of our PSR chapters around the country. And I can't tell you how delighted I am to do that, because really I feel like the chapters are the strength and the engine of PSR as an organization. The grants have been small, they've been modest, but they've been very helpful to the chapters in terms of allowing them to staff up a little bit, to engage in program, and also they have the effect of unifying our program nationally. So that's something that we want in the coming year and years, not only to maintain, but also to expand. And then finally, the third thing that I'm really proud of is that I have put together a strong environment and health team. There have been times over these years when I was that team. No, guys, those were not good times. I'm now so pleased to have, as my team, 2 smart, effective, young fellow advocates. That's right. They are Zach Williams and Maya Horniak. Could you guys stand up? Yeah, a great team. They're making really strong contributions to PSR, and I'm hoping that they will be with us for many years. I'd also like to give a shout out to 2 consultants whom I work with very extensively. Dusty, they're not here tonight, but I want you to hear at least their names. Dusty Horwit is our researcher and lead author on the series of reports on the use of toxic PFAS chemicals in fracking. The other is Andy Horwit, who is also with the Greater Boston PSR chapter. She has been our go-to expert for years now first on gas stoves, and then on methane combustion, and now on hydrogen. Neither one of them is formally a part of the PSR staff, but their contributions have been so great they feel like they are. Despite our efforts, despite our hard work, we are not winning the war against climate change. If we want to continue living on an earth that is beautiful and bountiful and hospitable to human life, we have to up our game. I want PSR to maintain our health voice, but at the same time, I want us to speak in ways that are more urgent, more intense. In the coming year and years, I hope that we will be calling out the oil and gas industry for the villain that they are. I hope that we will reject the pseudo-solutions of techno-fixes like nuclear energy, like carbon capture and sequestration, like fossil fuel-based hydrogen. I also want us to celebrate the new world that we are creating. We have to do so that people around the country and around the world feel the hope. That's the challenge. The times are tough. The challenge is tough. The times call on all of us to be health heroes. So let's do that together. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. The times are tough, and we do need to get tougher. Really appreciate that. Now I'm delighted to introduce our next introducer, our very own Associate Director of our Nuclear Weapons Abolition Program, Jasmine Owens, to introduce our next awardee.
Sorry, y'all, I got my notes on my phone. And it's locked. There we go. Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Jasmine, and it's truly an honor to be presenting PSR's Health Heroes Award to Tina Cordova tonight. Tina is a downwinder from New Mexico, and for those who don't know, downwinders are victims of radiation exposure due to nuclear testing from the US government, usually in the Southwest United States. And she's also the co-founder of the Tularosa Basin Downwinders Consortium, a group seeking justice for those who were unknowing, unwilling, and uncompensated victims of the Trinity test, which was the first ever nuclear detonation in New Mexico. For more than a decade, Tina has been fighting tirelessly to bring attention to the horrific intergenerational health harms that victims of radiation exposure have faced for 78 years, as well as justice for those communities, in particular Latinx, Indigenous, Black, and other people of color who are disproportionately harmed by radiation. When I think of hope, of how we're going to win this fight for nuclear justice, I think of Tina. I think of the TBDC and the countless other victims of nuclear weapons in the US and around the world fighting for their right to not just survive, but to thrive. And with that, I will turn it over to a true hero to the people, Tina.
Well, I'm rarely speechless, but tonight I just want to say thank you so very much for this distinction. I don't do this work alone. As has been mentioned already by the other awardees, there's always somebody that does this work with us. And I've had amazing people along the way that have contributed to the work that I've been doing for the last 18 years. Most recently, it's been recorded over and over, and I'm going to start out by saying this. It's usually at the end, but I'm going to start out by saying it tonight. I do this work because people in my community have been dying for 78 years. We bury someone and someone else is diagnosed. And that's just the hard truth. That's the legacy of the nuclear testing that took place in the United States. And I will do this work until the day we find success or until the day they put me in the ground. It is so wonderful to be able to collaborate with organizations like PSR. Your voices are trusted voices. They add strength to the work that we do. And so I'm grateful for the relationship that we have with PSR and other organizations that have joined with us. There is somebody that I want to mention that's special to me who is a member of PSR, and that's Dr. Maureen Merritt. Some of you may know Maureen. Maureen lived in New Mexico, was very instrumental in getting coverage for the nuclear workers, and she was on our steering committee years ago and was a mentor to me, and I learned a great deal from her. So I would be remiss if I wouldn't acknowledge the contributions she made to our organization. I also want to say that our organization has a structure to it. We have a steering committee, and I wish that all of those people were here with me tonight, but I again, can't do this work alone. I also want to acknowledge that I had some wonderful parents that taught me a long time ago to never take no for an answer, to always stand up when I saw that something wasn't right. And so to my dear father, who passed away from cancer, was a 4-year-old child living in a downwind community, drinking mass quantities of cow's milk. Later on in life, developed tongue cancer, didn't smoke, didn't drink, didn't use chewing tobacco, had no viruses. And then 8 years later got another primary tumor at the front of his tongue. Again, non-smoker, non-drinker, no chewing tobacco, no viruses. When I asked the doctors in New Mexico, how can this happen? They said it doesn't, but we see it all the time here. My dear dad taught me to never take a back seat and to always stand up. And so that's why I'm here tonight, because I learned from him how to stand up. I want you all to know that this legacy is not going away for us. I'm the 4th generation in my family to have cancer since 1945 when they tested the bomb. I now have a 23-year-old niece who's the 5th generation. We don't ask ourselves if we're going to get cancer, we ask when it's going to be our turn. There's a latency period associated with exposure to radiation and when you manifest disease. You all are physicians, you understand this. But if you have the genetics for this, there's no latency period. And now we're seeing it manifest in younger children all the time. In my little community, 45 miles from the Trinity test site, there's 2 families that are close to me who have babies. One, a 2-year-old child that just had to have an eye removed because of eye cancer. And I also have a very close friend from the Mescalero Apache Reservation. And he's helping support his son take his grandson to MD Anderson on a very regular basis. He's 9 months old and he's been on chemo since he was 2 months old. So tonight, as you award this to me, you help support our efforts. You stand with us, you communicate that this isn't okay, that we can't look away from these sorts of things, that our government made mistakes and that they have to atone for them, that the time has come for them to do that. We are this close right now to getting the bill passed in Congress. July 27th of this year, the U.S. Senate passed our bill, the RECA Amendment Bill, as an amendment to the National Defense Authorization Act by a vote of 61 to 37. That never happens, folks. But we had Senator Josh Hawley, Republican from Missouri, join with Senator Ben Ray Lujan from New Mexico, Democrat and Republican, address this in a nonpartisan way because this is not a partisan issue. Exposure to radiation is not discerning. It affects the young, the old, the male, the female, the black, the white, the Republican and the Democrat alike. And it is time that our government complete this winning process, and the House of Representatives does the exact same thing, that they reconcile the NDAA to include the RECA amendments. It's time that we do that. They will tell us that it's going to cost too much. We have spent $12 trillion on our nuclear program since its inception. $12 trillion. The program so far in 33 years has paid out $2.5 billion. Right now, they say it's going to cost $150 billion to add the states of New Mexico, Colorado, Idaho, Montana, Guam, and all of Arizona, Nevada, and Utah. $150 billion. That's less than 1/10 of 1% of $12 trillion. For the people of New Mexico, let me tell you some statistics. We're the state most reliant on Medicaid for our health care coverage. 47% of all the people in New Mexico access health care using Medicaid. I know that a significant number of those people are downwinders and uranium workers. And why do I know? Because we've been collecting health surveys for 16 years and we ask the question. And inevitably, when people get too sick to work, there's only one option for them, and that's Medicaid. New Mexico also, just recently we found out, carries some of the highest medical debt in the whole country. 2 million people carrying $881 million, almost $1 billion in medical debt. We have been affected physically, emotionally, psychologically, and financially in a way that we will never be able to fully understand. Justice for us means that our government atones for the mistakes that they made. And we should certainly, after 78 years, be able to look at this through a different lens than we have looked at it for all these many years. So what can everybody do to help us? Well, you can join with us. You can go to our website, www.trinitydownwinders.com. There's messaging there. There's links so that you can reach out to your members of Congress. We have to make sure that they understand how important this is to us as people from all across the country. That's number one. The other thing is, everybody has probably seen the Oppenheimer movie, right? Okay, it looks as though it took place in a vacuum. They don't portray a single person from New Mexico. When they established the Manhattan Project and they conducted the Trinity test in New Mexico, they invaded our lands and our lives, they ruined our environment, and they walked away. When Christopher Nolan came to New Mexico to film the film, he invaded our lands and our lives, he took our tax incentives, and he didn't reflect on the sacrifice or the suffering of the people of New Mexico, and shame on them. So what I ask tonight is that you all see us. I know you do because you awarded this to me. But I ask you all, don't look away from us. Don't look away from us, please. After 78 years, join with us. Join with us in this fight. It's the right thing to do, and I regularly say, once you know this history and you understand this history, if you remain complacent, then you are complicit in the injustices that we have suffered from. And I appreciate this honor, and I'm so glad to be with you here in person, and I will forever be grateful for this recognition. Thank you.
Well, what an inspiration. Thank you, Tina. And that's trinitydownwinders.com, not .org, .com. So go there and take advantage of her resources. You know, Tina told us that she learned to stand up from her dad. And that's really the model that PSR seeks. We want to be the moms and dads that teach the next generation of healthcare professionals how to stand up. So we need PSR to be strong so the next generation can stand up and be able to work together with people like Tina's organization. Okay, you're almost done with me, I promise. But there are a couple of people I want to recognize. So this is recognition time. First, could please the staff of PSR National please stand up and let us thank you. Thank you. And everyone sit except for my buddy John Joko, who our Director of Philanthropy. If you have the name of someone you'd like John to contact, an organization you think would like to support PSR, please find John and help us out, because we need all the contacts, all the introductions. So please keep us in mind and remember John Joko. And thank you, John, for tonight. Sadly, we lost a number of very important board members who cycled off our board this year. And the two are here tonight for us to thank in person. But the board members who left who are not here tonight are Linda Rudolph, Matt Bivens, Ira Helfand, John Rackow, and Bob Gould. So let's first thank them for their great service. And several of them were long-term mentors of mine, and I particularly miss their leadership. Bob and Peter, John, Alan, and Ira, and I do dearly miss them. Two are here tonight, and I would like them to come up individually and receive plaques. First, I'd like, please, for Peter Welk to come forward. Let me say a word about Peter. So words cannot express the leadership Peter has shown to me. Not only very much a long-term board member, 2 years president of PSR National, 2 years executive director of PSR National, also my suite mate, my first time on the board, and really brought me into the culture of the PSR board in a way for which I'm very, very grateful. Continues to be a huge leader at our main chapter. Peter, thank you so, so much.
Todd, thank you. I was not expecting this, so I really appreciate it. As those of you who know me, PSR has been central to my life since 1981. So it's a pleasure to continue to work with all of you, and we need to carry on. There are serious threats, and PSR has a role to play in addressing them. So thank you all very much.
And I would like to lure Ann and Alan Lockwood to come up again, please. Because as long-term supporters of PSR and board member, we have a plaque for you as well. Thank you again. And one other person I just can't let go without personal thanks. Anna Lanakis, could you come up, please? So, my third day as president this year, we learned that our former executive director, who we loved, was leaving us to get a bigger job. And we put together a transition committee that met weekly, every week, for months and months, an hour, sometimes 2 hours. It was so important to have our chapters be an integral part of that transition process so that we heard the voices, the needs of our chapters. And Anna stepped forward as volunteer, left her family, her real job as executive director of PSR Greater Boston, and gave us all that time. And although I have the whole transition committee, I'd like to thank Anna. We want to give you special thanks. Thank you so much. Now I want to say a few words about our remarkable interim executive director, Taylor Carnero Johnson, who's going to speak to you in a few minutes. Taylor's been with for PSR about a decade, is that right? As our director of operations, but also on January 3rd, when we learned that Jeff Carter was leaving, Taylor immediately stepped forward the leadership that we needed, not just to survive, but to thrive in a difficult transition year. He became our interim executive director, really wearing two hats, working 80, 100-hour weeks, leading the transition process. Taylor, it wouldn't have happened without you. We wouldn't have found someone as marvelous as Brian Campbell, and we wouldn't have had such a loyal, wonderful staff and board except for your leadership. So I want to thank you very much. Taylor wouldn't let us give him a plaque. So that's the kind of guy he is. He doesn't want plaques. He wants to get the work done. And so I really appreciate it. Taylor, come up and say a few words, would you?
Oh, shucks. So really, it's really wonderful to see all of you here. This is our first formal event in 4 years, so we're glad to have all of you as part of it. And for many of you that I've gotten to know over the past 4 years during the pandemic, it's great to see you other than on a 17-inch computer screen. So I am Taylor Carnero Johnson, and I have served as Director of Administration, Operations, and Finance for the past 9 years, and for the past 7 months as Interim Executive Director. Before I make any further remarks, though, I would like to share some comments regarding one of this evening's honorees, Jeff Carter, who served as PSR's most recent Executive Director, couldn't be with us this evening, but he asked that I share the following. As PSR's Executive Director, I had the immense pleasure of working closely with Barb Gottlieb for 7 years, and it was an absolute joy. Her intelligence, doggedness, relentless drive, and enthusiasm for the work was much more reminiscent of someone at the start of their career rather than someone later in their career. Which is why I find it difficult to imagine Barb ever actually retiring one day. This is, after all, a woman who relaxes on weekends by editing reports. One of the best decisions I made at PSR as Executive Director was giving Barb more leadership over PSR's Environment and Health program. The exponential growth and success of that program the last several years under her guidance are a testament to her exceptional leadership skills. Those of you who have worked with her over the years know that she takes every aspect of her work very seriously, while at the same time possessing and employing a terrific sense of humor. And in words I think she'll appreciate, she's a tough cookie. She's always ready to fight for what's right. I was so happy to learn that Barb was to receive this award. She is certainly a hero to me. Thank you, Barb, for your efforts to make this world a better place and for continuing to be an exceptional colleague and friend. So that's from Jeff Carter. And I won't even attempt to eclipse those comments because all I can say is I couldn't agree more. So it's really been truly an honor for me to serve as interim executive director for the past 7 months. And I'd like to thank the board leadership, Todd Sack, Mike Martin, I'm trying to look where everyone is, Steve McKee is here somewhere, and Sarili Patel for their support during that time. I'd also like to thank Marjane Mouini, who is a member of the board of directors, and Anna Linakis, who everyone just met. They served along with me in the transition committee, and as Todd said, we spent countless hours engaging with one another over the past year. And I really learned so much from each of you, and I value that experience and the relationships that we strengthened. Most of all, I'd like to recognize and thank PSR's fantastic, dedicated, and hardworking staff. And I'm going to ask you guys to stand up once again and give them a round of applause once again. And I have to say, although I've worked with them for more than the past 7 months, over the past 7 months, they encouraged me, they challenged me, they provided the support and confidence that I needed to help lead PSR through this period of transition. And actually, each and every one of them are leaders in their own right, making PSR staff a rare team of leaders. And in my mind, that makes them heroes as well. So we're honoring them tonight. The nature of our work is dire and exhausting, and at times can challenge our morale and our fortitude. Yet they each have proven time and time again their tenacity, their commitment, and their inner strength. They continue to inspire me and to teach me each and every day, and for that I am thankful and feel truly blessed. I couldn't ask for a better second family, which is how I think of you all. Keep up the good work. And I would like to thank again John Chioco, our Director of Philanthropy. John joined us in mid-March and was told on his first day, oh, guess what? You get to plan our first in-person event in 4 years. And we need to have that done by November. So John, I think you've done a fantastic job. Thank you for bringing all of us together tonight. And I'm also thrilled that this evening provides the opportunity for us to welcome our new executive director. I'm happy to turn over the reins to him, and I look forward to working together with him, with our board of directors, our staff, our chapter network, our coalition partners, and our supporters as we continue on our journey to advance PSR and amplify the vital work around nuclear weapons abolition and environment and health. And in particular, with a focus on diversity, equity, inclusion, justice, and belonging. Finally, I would like to acknowledge and thank everyone who supports PSR and our mission, including our activists, those who partner with us through coalitions, and the foundations and individual donors who provide the much-needed financial support to help advance our work to protect human life from the gravest threats to health and survival. All of you, all of us, we are one PSR, and PSR wouldn't exist without each and every one of you. And with that, I'd like to turn it back over to Todd to introduce our new executive director.
So you can't really understand why Brian is among us unless you understand a little bit more about our board of directors. And for that reason, I've left to now to ask our board of directors to stand so I can thank you. Please stand up, PSR National Board of Directors. So why is it so important to meet our board before you meet Brian? Because this is a board that's really evolved over the last 3 or 4 years as we looked inside to think about what kind of organization we want PSR to be. And we decided about 4 or 5 years ago we wanted to be a strongly equity-focused, environmental justice, a focused organization that thinks broadly about our issues, that thinks about the intersectionality between the nuclear weapons threat and the climate change threat. And I think it was largely because Brian saw that we were that kind of organization, that he was willing to work for us. And this is a guy that we're going to have to work hard to appease, because he has very high standards when it comes to equity and environmental justice. I'm not going to read his resume, but I'm just going to say a couple things about Brian that touched us. He grew up in the Deep South in Alabama in an Afro-American community where he was personally offended by the culture of the Deep South. And that experience has really influenced and shaped his thinking. He's an academician who's published and taught at university medical centers. He's a PhD. He did his lead work on environmental justice. He's also been a scholar working at institutions helping lead environmental sustainability projects in the healthcare center, university centers. His most recent job was working at the Iowa Environmental Council, where he led a coalition of more than 50 organizations, maybe it was 150, I'm not sure, and to bring together diverse communities, ethnic communities, economic communities. The way he did was very important to us because we see our chapters as being the core to our strength at PSR. And I think more than any other of the marvelous candidates we had for this job, Brian exemplified the concern for chapters and equity and justice that we think are terribly important to move PSR forward. I'm not going to say anything about Brian. I'll let him talk to himself, but I want to introduce you now to Brian Campbell, PhD.
Thank you. It's really exciting to be here tonight. I just want to pause and just notice all the amazing things we've heard already from all these amazing people. I feel really honored to be part of this community, this organization, this family, as Taylor said. And I want to say thanks, first and foremost. Thanks to Todd and to Taylor, to Mike and the transition committee. A lot of people put a lot of time and thought into this process. And as Todd said, that meant a lot to me as somebody thinking about what was next for my life and career, to be part of an organization that has such an amazing history, but also is really so thoughtful about where we're going next. Because this is a critical moment. We've heard a lot of examples of that already tonight. And so I feel really excited to do this work. And yeah, I think we have a lot of work to do. And we've heard lots of people already challenge us tonight about, what more there is to do with this work. So I'll say a little bit about myself, but also more about all the things I'm excited about in this role. As Todd said, I grew up in the Deep South in Mobile, Alabama, in a community where I learned to love the outdoors. There was lots of beautiful places, some of the most biodiverse parts of this country, but also a place where environmental racism was really obvious. Even though I didn't have language for that as a child, I knew that I had friends who lived in neighborhoods where it smelled different than mine and where my dad worked in a place that we couldn't visit because it wasn't safe. And so, I think even before I understood any of that, I developed a curiosity about why is this the way the world is and what can we do to change that? And so a lot of my life and career has been about trying to learn more and confront that. And that led me in lots of different directions, including, as Todd said, like many of you, lots of education that culminated at Emory University, where I studied a lot about the history of environmental injustices, but also tried to understand the history and culture of the movements of people who have worked for generations to address these issues. We've heard so much about what we've learned from people who've come before us and all the things we need to pass along to do this work. And so that's been my real focus, is trying to understand the stories and the places and the people that choose to take bold action on these issues. And so I'm really proud to be part of an organization that has a long history of that and a long history ahead to keep working at these issues. I worked at Emory, researching and studying these things, but like many of you, I was the kind of professional who felt like whatever institution I'm part of, we can't just talk about this stuff, we have to act. And so that took me far beyond the classroom or archives or things like that. And I did a lot of work with communities in Atlanta, looking at health disparities and racial and environmental justice issues in that community. It eventually led me to Iowa, where I got to start a program on sustainability and environmental justice at a small college in a rural community in a really different kind of context. And I've learned a lot living in Iowa this past decade that I think has been really helpful in a place where people are engaged in politics in different ways than they are in lots of parts of the country. I met David Drake because he hosted an event in his home to talk about water quality and the health impacts of water pollution from agriculture, something that we've already heard about tonight. And it struck me, this is the kind of people and place where we care about these issues and we talk with each other directly about them. So I've been there most recently, as Todd said, as the executive director of the Iowa Environmental Council. We have about 100 member organizations in this statewide coalition. And we've worked on a lot of the kinds of things that you've already heard about tonight. A lot of the work I've been doing is focused on closing coal plants and talking about that from a health perspective, but also calling out the corporate coal plant owners and really talking directly about the people who profit from these issues. As much as we have to change policymakers, we also have to create that kind of culture of accountability with the public and talking about fossil fuel pollution. I've also, always been the kind of person, as Todd said, who looks for connections between these issues. And so as much as I've focused a lot on climate change and fossil fuels in Iowa, I've also been really excited to have ways to find connections with issues including nuclear weapons that have been part of the reality that's touched all of us all over the world. And so, one of the exciting things I did that really changed my life 3 years ago was an interview with some of the refugees from the Marshall Islands who wound up in Dubuque, Iowa, of all places, because they can't live in their home anymore, both because of radiation and sea level rise, and because their diets have been so radically transformed by these changes that they've had to leave their homes, many of them to come work in meat packing plants to make canned meats that is part of why they have such chronic health conditions in the first place. And so I got to know some health workers in Dubuque, Marshallese folks, who are part of a whole diaspora of people all over the world, who've been impacted by radiation and the American military. And so, that made me start to think in all sorts of new ways about the connections between these issues. And so as I looked for the kind of work I wanted to do next, PSR was an amazing fit and the kind of place that I was especially excited, as you said, about a place that takes seriously the connections between these issues and the way that issues of justice and equity underlie all of this. And so I'm excited to be part of this work. I'm humbled to be standing among a whole lot of heroes tonight. And I look forward to getting to know all of you more and to doing this work together. We have a lot to do. This is day 3 for me. But I'm really excited. And I'm going to ask for a few things from you to help with that. And I'm sure John will make some asks after I wrap up as well. One, I want you to help me continue to learn. I think one of the things that's exciting about this organization is a group of people, like you heard from Alan and others, who are always learning new things and who know that we have to stay sharp and we have to continue to connect with people who can help us be smart about these issues. So help me learn. I would love to get to know lots of you, and you can help me learn about these issues and meet other people who can help us in this work, because we heard a lot about the importance of those partnerships. That's always been part of PSR's work. You can also help, continuing to support this work. None of this would happen without generations of generous donors, including yourselves tonight. So I'm really grateful for people who've supported PSR by being here tonight with this event, and for all the support you've given over the years that have helped sustain us through lots of transitions that have come before, and that will be really essential as we make this transition with me and with all the new directions that we're going to be heading. So I really appreciate your generous support. We've also heard all sorts of ways that we can and must take action beyond our checkbooks. And so I know all of you are here because you care about these issues, and there's lots of ways that we will continue to invite you to take meaningful action. And I know that's a big part of why you're here, because you want to be part of that work. My sense is PSR started with a group of people who cared about these things and talked to each other in small communities. And we heard lots of examples of that already, of people saying, you should learn about this organization. I think it would be meaningful to you. And I think we have to continue that, right? At the chapter level in local communities, reaching out to our friends and family and telling them about why this is so special to us. And so I would challenge you to think of 1 or 2 people that you want to talk to about what you heard tonight. There's so much that we could share that was inspiring stories and heroes. So think about somebody that you can share that with to help us continue to grow this movement. So thank you so much for choosing to trust in me and to help lead this organization. I depend on lots of support from all of you. I'm looking forward to getting to know all of you more in the days ahead. And again, thanks to so many people who were part of the process. Thanks to John for bringing us together tonight. And I'll turn over to you to say a few more words.
All right, everyone. Thank you all for coming tonight. I really appreciate the gratitude for bringing everyone together. But as we've learned tonight, no one plays solo. This is a team. I had a team behind me to execute everything tonight. Jennifer, who you've seen running around, Donnell taking pictures, our wonderful catering staff, and Julia, who helped me do some of the back end web stuff and communications. And then I also wanted to thank our philanthropy committee, our chair, Kathy Falvo, Todd Sack, Mike Martin, Katie Huffling, and Mark Vossler, who could not join us tonight, because they really helped guide the vision for tonight's event. And the lesson that I've learned from everyone that spoke before me is we are all in this together. We're all on this planet together. We're all on Team Humanity together. And we've got two giant existential threats that we need to take a heavy swing at, climate change and nuclear weapons abolition. And working together, we can really make a difference. We've seen some of the work that folks have done already, but there's still more to do. And I think I would like to end the night by asking you, two things you can do. First is, if you haven't already made a gift, please make a gift. There's QR codes in the programs. There's also some on the screens. And the second thing that's coming up, so I've got this fresh off the press, so I might be not explaining it in the clearest way, but there's more to do on RECA in the coming weeks. So stay tuned for our action alerts. Stay tuned for a word from us, from Tina and our partners, to find out more actions you can take.